I think that's the first time I've ever started a video with an outtake. Usually I do it at the end, but I thought why not start with a bang? We got a lot to cover today, so let's just get into it. It's me, and this is my bonsai. Miniaturization and illusion of age. It's one of the most important elements of bonsai. A truly great bonsai can be thousands of years old in appearance, yet only inches in height. We'll talk about how that's accomplished in just a second. But first, we need to understand what makes a bonsai look old. Old trees have a lot of features that younger trees don't have. And a lot of those features are things that we kind of take for granted when we re-looking at them in nature. You see, if you're out in the forest and you're looking up at a big old tree, all of these features are very obvious, right? Like the gnarly bark, the thick canopy, the sweeping branches. But when we bring that tree back in our garden, those features become less obvious. The first thing that we lose when we bring a tree into our garden is scale. When you're out in nature, there's always something nearby that gives us some sense of scale. There's a house or a car or another person, something to compare the tree to so that we know just how big it is. When we put that tree in our garden, we remove any sense of scale. So now the first thing we have to do to create the illusion of age is give our bonsai some sense of scale. This is called foreshortening. A lot of the illusion of age comes down to proportions. A young tree will typically have finer, more delicate foliage and branches that are thin in diameter relative to their length. As the tree matures, those branches thicken. They take on a more angular shape and may become stronger. Over time, the trunk becomes thicker as well, and the taper becomes less severe. So now the branches and the trunk are much shorter in relation to the total size of the tree. This is the opposite of what happens in a young tree. This shift in proportions gives the bonsai a more mature look. It creates the illusion of age. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that occurs over many, many years. But once you establish that the tree has been growing for a long time, then it's a matter of simply exaggerating those proportions to make them more extreme. Okay, so let's take this bonsai here. The first thing I did was add some soil to the pot. This is going to give us a little bit of scale because now we have something to compare the tree to. Even though it's a small pot, it helps us understand how big the tree is relative to its container. Now the next thing I did was prune off the excess growth. That way the tree isn't going to grow bigger than the pot. And by doing so, I was able to remove a lot of the weaker, finer branches, which helps strengthen the remaining branches and exaggerate the angles between them. Lastly, I wired down a couple of the branches to bring them closer to horizontal, which helps the tree appear more mature and stable. By making these small tweaks to the tree, I was able to exaggerate its proportions and make it look older. The next thing we need to consider is the bark. Young trees tend to have smooth, even bark. Older trees have rough, textured bark. Now, there's a few ways you can add texture to your bonsai. You can use tools like sandpaper or a wire brush or a Dremel tool to carve into the bark and create lines and crevices. Or you could simply wrap the trunk with a piece of cloth or string and then periodically pull it tight so that, as the tree grows, the bark plates along the lines that you created. Either way, the goal is to create texture and depth on the surface of the bark. Another feature that can help your bonsai look older is curvature. Now there's two ways to add curvature to your bonsai. First, you could graft a curved branch onto the trunk. And that works great if you already have a branch that you can use, but sometimes you don't have that luxury. In those cases, you're going to have to train a new branch to grow in the direction that you want. And you can do this by tying a piece of string or wire to the branch and then tying that to the trunk. Then every couple weeks or so, you're gonna loosen the string or wire and move it a little closer to where you want it to stay. Eventually, the branches gone not get wedged against the trunk, and then you can remove the string or wire. If you want to learn more about this technique, I am gonna leave a link to a video that I made a while back that goes into a lot more detail. Lastly, there's the overall design of the bonsai. You see, good bonsai designs are always in proportion. Each branch and twig has its place. Nothing is random. Now, achieving this level of refinement takes a lot of time and practice, but it's definitely something that you can work towards. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, great, but how do I know when I'm done? How do I know when my bonsai is old enough? Well, it's a tough question. The truth is, there's no right answer. It's really up to you. What do you think looks good? You might be tempted to go for the most mature look possible. You might want to exaggerate the proportions to make the tree look as old as possible, but sometimes that can be a mistake. You see, bonsai is about balance. Even though we're trying to create the illusion of age, we still have to balance that with the other design elements. So here's a little secret for you. Sometimes it's better to underwire rather than overwire. Sometimes it's better to have a little bit less bark texture rather than too much. Remember, it's a balancing act. What's most important is that you create a cohesive design. And remember, you're not trying to make a perfect tree. You're trying to make a beautiful bonsai. Bonsai is about simplicity and elegance. It's about finding beauty in imperfection. Embrace the imperfections in your bonsai. Learn to love them because they're what make your bonsai unique. They're what make it yours. Now, there's a lot of other factors that contribute to the illusion of age. For example, deadwood is a very common design element in bonsai, and it can help your bonsai look older. I am planning on making a video about deadwood in the near future, so make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss that one. Also, patina is an important element to consider. Patina is a greenish film that develops on the trunk and branches of some bonsai over time. It's caused by algae and moss growing on the tree, and it can help give your bonsai a more aged look. Alright, so let's summarize everything we've talked about today. To make your bonsai look older, you're gonna have to exaggerate the proportions, add texture to the bark, incorporate curvature, strive for a balanced design, and embrace the imperfections. Remember, it's not about creating the perfect tree. It's about creating a beautiful bonsai. And, I said I was gonna share an outtake with you at the beginning of this video, but I didn't. I'm not gonna do it now. I'll save it for the end. Here it is. It's me, and this is my bonsai. Miniaturization and Illusion of Age. It's one of the most important elements of bonsai. A truly great bonsai can be thousands of years old in appearance, yet only inches in height. We'll talk about how that's accomplished in just a second. But first, we need to understand what makes a bonsai look old. Old trees have a lot of features that younger trees don't have. And a lot of those features are things that we kind of take for granted when we're looking at them in nature. You see, if you're out in the forest and you're looking up at a big old tree, all of these features are very obvious, like the gnarly bark, the thick canopy, the sweeping branches. But when we bring that tree back in our garden, those features become less obvious. The first thing that we lose when we bring a tree into our garden is a sense of scale. When you're out in nature, there's always something nearby that gives us some sense of scale. There's a house or a car or another person, something to compare the tree to so that we know just how big it is. When we put that tree in our garden, we remove any sense of scale. So the first thing we have to do to create the illusion of age is give our bonsai some sense of scale. This is called foreshortening.